color shouldn't have anything to do with relationships. And
welcome to Ziggy Gets It Wrong, a Quantum Leap podcast. I'm your host, Brian Leapy. That's your other host, Evan the Mayor.
Hey.
And down in the lower left corner, it's your other host, Casey the
Top
Conqueror.
left for the rest of us, Brian.
Now in HD.
Yeah, sort of. Yeah, Ziggy Gets It Wrong. We got two strong episodes. One very important and poignant, and the other just peak Quantum Leap. Brian, you have synopses?
I did. I threw my notepad too far away. I had to stretch for it. All right, I got it. On our first episode, Sam, a very white man, leaps into Ray, a black doctor in Watts, to teach everyone the true meaning of equality. And then Sam leaps into Harry Spontini, a magician who finds himself in a Kramer versus Kramer. Will the episode end with a child's entrails littering the floor? Probably not.
Oh, I have notes on that. We'll get to that. But yeah, first episode entitled Black on White on Fire takes place on August 11th, 1965. It's the Watts Riots episode. Yay!
And the episode originally aired November 9th, 1990.
Ooh, tell us more.
I thought that this was important because as we were watching it, it kind of came to mind, like, what year did it air, and then when was the Rodney King riots in relation?
Okay. April 29th, 1992. Casey, there was a riot on the streets. Tell me, where were you?
So this was 2 years before the Rodney King riots. But
right.
So before this episode, were you aware of the Watts riots?
I probably was, but didn't know the name of it. I knew that, like, 65 is a big year for riots and race relation type stuff that's not great. I just wanted to note that actually 34 people died during the Watts riots, including one on this episode, and $44 million in damages, which in today's dollars is $381 million. That's a lot.
Well, Casey, was I aware of the Watts riots in 1990? Or was I aware of the Watts riots in 2020?
As you were watching it, like before you watched this episode.
This is my first episode of Quantum Leap. This is the first episode I remember watching as a kid. I was rendered bawling at the end of the episode, and we'll get to it. But interestingly enough, since the time we've started this show, I have gone back to college. One of my classes, on my first semester of my return to college, we had a lot of chapters on the Watts Rebellion, as we call it now.
Yes, we are in the phase of society where we are now referring to riots as uprisings and or whatever you want to call them.
Yeah. This is the Watts Rebellion. Yeah, so I'm actually mildly familiar with this, and just it was a real tough time. To say it from my position as an East Coast white Jew, LA was not a kind place to minorities in the 50s and the 60s and beforehand. And these were people, I think they really did a good job of showing just how tired, how beat down the people of Watts, the people of South Central Los Angeles were just at the time.
Well, before we get to that, and we've got some other things to cover, Brian.
We have a whole bunch of our fun bullshit to go through.
Yes, our fun bullshit. So let's get it out of the way before we get too deep and too a little angry. Should be noted that this date, August 11th, 1965, is Viola Davis's birthday. Top movies at the box office were The Hill, starring Sean Connery, Repulsion by Roman Polanski, and the tagline for this movie is, "The nightmare world of a virgin's dreams becomes the screen's shocking reality."
Ooh, problematic, to say the least.
It should be noted that Sam is immediately shirtless in this episode. We will give you updates on the shirtless tally sometime.
Really? He gets pretty bloody in this episode, like covered in blood.
He gets blood all over him from multiple people.
It's wild.
I started out doing an N-word tally on this episode, but then I stopped because I found it to be in poor taste. But it was jarring the first time the term is used.
Real soon after the credits.
I was going to say, let's set up the premise for this episode. Sam is leapt into a black man who has a white girlfriend, and his black brothers do not appreciate this scenario. Neither does her father, or seemingly no one But you know,
and I think it's important.
Except for his mom. Ray's mom was okay with it.
Okay.
She's just like, hey man, it's gonna be tough for you. But I think it's important to mention that when we say Ray's brothers, legitimately one of them was his brother. The rest are, I think, were just buddies.
Was Lonnie his brother? And Lonnie, let me just
Lonnie
tell
was
you,
his. Lonnie was his. Lonnie was his real brother.
Acting his balls off. Passion play status.
Oh well, what about CCH Pounder?
Her too.
Emmy winner. Me. Tell me she has an Oscar and a Tony. Tell me she has a Grammy. I believe it. But CCH Pounders, star of the upcoming Avatar sequels.
That's right. Yeah. So anyway, the first time the N-word is dropped is when what is it? What's his name? Big D something. The doc. He's the
Big Daddy. It's not Big Daddy, but the fat guy. Yeah.
The big man. He says,
what you love is having a toy nigga to show off to your liberal honky friends.
Yeah, so obviously Sam is here to fix racism again. He immediately assumes that he's here to stop the Watts riots. I don't know how. For a show that prides itself on low stakes, I don't know, Sam. I think that's out of your pay grade, even for Quantum Leap.
Watching this episode, I kind of, when he said that, I kind of thought that might have been feasible because I wasn't familiar with the Watts riots. So I'm like, okay, well, maybe this is where, Ziggy does get it wrong. And that's why Sam is here.
But this is another episode in which Ziggy continuously changes the goalposts in terms of the percentages of likelihood that such and such is going to die and this and that and the other.
Right, because as soon as it's like, oh, she's not going to die, he should have just left. And he should have been able to stick around why was he sticking around for the resolution?
What stuck with me in the beginning was, Al was like, yeah, there's an offside chance that she might die. And said in quotes 30%. That's more than an offside, an off chance, an outside
that's 1 out of 3. Those are good odds.
So what's interesting to me is whether or not, so we've recently on the home show, we did an episode with our friend Jordan Clark about white savior stuff, right? Uh-huh. Do we consider this episode white savory?
If for no other reason that the main character is a white guy, yes, but he did all the moves, right? I guess, gave all the Rainbow Coalition speeches to everybody you possibly could. Stuck with the plan, What I got irritated by, first, I just need to say, and getting back to Big D or whatever his name was, he had the best line in the whole damn episode where, not Lonnie, whatever the guy's name is going to medical school, and he says, yeah, man, your MD ain't going to be nothing more than moving doo-doo. Oh, loved it. So great.
It's like the only concept is bedpans. He's like, you're just gonna be doing bedpans. That's not what doctors do. That's what doctors do.
That's all I do.
So it's important. So I want to talk about the so you got CCH Pounder, you have do you know who the dad cop was?
He did look familiar, but I immediately was like, of course he's LAPD. He has to be, right?
His name is Mark Alamo. And he plays Gul Dukat on just a million episodes of Star Trek Deep Space Nine.
Oh,
he is
great. This is not the Star Trek podcast, okay?
Well, he's a Cardassian, so I know him well. I'm wearing a Star Trek shirt. I know him well.
Yeah, a lot of choice lines in the confrontation between Susan's dad and Ray, aka Sam. Some pointed comments. Coloreds are beating whites and Watts right now.
Why would anyone think about the white people?
And Susan's retort is, Negroes and whites are getting married all the time. It doesn't matter anymore. Oh,
it's totally cool.
Cringy.
Did you see
who in 65? Who?
Yeah, right. In 65.
Did you guys look to see who wrote the episode?
It was Don Bellisario's wife, right?
Yeah. So this episode is based on their interracial relationship.
Yes.
She is I was at the same time I was like, it's cringy because Sam is there. There is, and it's really boomery,
very,
can't we all just get along bullshit?
Yes, extremely.
But at the same time, there are always just a few lines where you're like, oh, that feels really lived in. Like this is a person who knows what they're talking about.
Yeah, I think one of the weirder lines by Sam was,
when she looks at me, I feel like she wants to just crawl inside and never come out.
I'm like, what?
And like,
because
I
if Don Bellisario's wife wrote that, like, is that how she feels about her husband?
That's how she feels about Don Bellisario. Wow. She's like, oh, tell me all about Hill Street Blues, or no, that's Stephen Bochco. I don't know what does. Tell me all about Magnum PI.
Somebody watched Empire Strikes Back one too many times, I think.
I thought Don Bellisario spelled bad on the outside.
I thoroughly enjoyed it when Al shows up, and then Sam is like in the car, and he just looks in the rearview mirror, and he's like, "I'm black again now."
Oh,
so disappointed. What am I gonna do?
Like, God,
what am I gonna do this time? God,
I thought I solved racism last time.
Could you imagine, like, Sam has like a string of like 3 black leaps in a row, and he's like, fuck, man, can't I just get like an easy like pregnant lady or something? What is going on here?
I mean, in the second episode, it's kind of like melodramatic, but it's kind of a softball, mission.
Well, so I want to deal with it. Let me talk about the ending.
No. Let's continue on with this. Is the more important episode. I mean, it's not as fun, but
yeah. I mean, there's a lot to talk about in Spontini, but Spontini is just boilerplate.
It's
QL.
Yeah, it's just P.
Yeah. So at the end of the episode, the speech between, like, the conversation between Ray and Lonnie, between Sam and Lonnie, like that's some real powerful shit.
Yeah,
and, like,
no, I mean,
Lonnie,
they were acting their balls off, and if Lonnie didn't get an Emmy or something like that, he should have at least been nominated. But
not a chance.
Not a chance.
But then, like, Lonnie gives up, and as soon as Sam and the girlfriend step away,
his head gets blown off. Like, just okay,
like,
all right.
So I saw this episode for the first time.
When you were a kid, yeah.
As a 7-year-old.
Wow.
This was the first time where I'm like, I just remember. I mean, like, I remember like the night, like, spinning around saying, "They won. Why did he die?"
Right.
And like my dad just being like, "Just sometimes it doesn't work out that like." It was, and just
a gut punch for
losing my shit.
Yeah.
It was a real gut punch.
Gut punch for a 35-year-old.
Yeah, that too. If you've never seen it.
Oh yeah, right. Oh yeah, like I knew what was coming, and I'm like, this is going to be tough. This is not going to be easy, but it's one of so
my
good.
Favorite scenes that was not quite as heavy was when Papa D, the Doctor of Love, knows that Ray just needs a sultry black lady to cure his white lusting.
He said, "You just need some of that sweet brown chocolate sliding down the front of a 45." I remember that line, like
melting to the rhythm of a 45 or something.
Melting
like that.
To the rhythm of a 45. Yes.
But yeah, I was unaware that the riots actually started on a rumor that a pregnant lady was beaten by a cop. Which they did throw in there, and then, God, the like riot footage was just like a bunch of firefighters like shooting water at a flame and some cop stuff, and it was just like, is this actual footage or is it just like stock footage of burning things?
There was some stock footage, but then I also feel like there was some stuff they did like on the Universal backlot or something,
right?
Like
all the like a lot of it was like the line of black people like fighting with the cops and stuff was definitely filmed on the backlot.
Yeah, like at Liquor Mart or was called or something like that. Like that was all new and that was all like filmed. But then like the grainy footage, there was a fair amount of like legitimate like Watts Rebellion like footage.
Mm-hmm.
It was pretty wild.
I probably should have like looked that up on YouTube or something to verify, but I didn't. Whoops.
So,
these things happen.
So how did you guys feel overall about like the how did you feel? Did they do a good job of portraying the conflict? I really had a low expectations, and I was kind of pleasantly surprised.
Yeah.
So the episode was written by Deborah Pratt. Right? Yeah, Deborah Pratt, a black woman. So that right there, she's telling her own story. It might be gender swapped and time displaced, and set in this. I think there's a lot of stuff that was cringy, like when you say, well, what if we just don't teach him to be human? You know, there's a lot of, we'll just like 90s, we'll just be colorblind. That we just know
like, let's ignore all this stuff that's been
2021.
going on for the past 300 years and just be human beings, guys. We did it.
And then we just know 30 years later, that shit just didn't work.
And it's not only that, but it's still happening now.
Right. So, so I don't blame her for towing that, like, because that was the line back then. You know, like, we're colorblind. That was the way it was in the 90s. Because like I got assumed like she's the same age as my dad. My dad's always like, I always taught you not to see color, and I was like, yeah, but it didn't work. So I think it felt very authentic, but at the same time very boomery.
Yeah, and I think my question is whether that was on purpose or not, because watching the episode and Sam is saying the stuff like, as Ray is saying, like, we can teach our kids not, the race doesn't matter and stuff like that. But like putting like, if just thinking about it, that's something I think Sam would say as a scientist, like approaching racism as, oh, this is a science equation that I can solve and let's do this. But then have the other perspective of the people who are actually living in that time period and being like, we're tired. We're tired of dealing with this. We're tired of getting beat by the police.
No,
and it's just that anger and frustration. And I don't know. It just, in a modern lens, it kind of feels a little bit different, I guess.
No, but Sam is a dyed-in-the-wool Pollyanna. Like there's almost no nuance to his lines ever. It's not like, oh yeah, well, this community has been affected by all kinds of systemic issues, which Al explains to him earlier, and then it's just like, no, fuck it. You know what? Let's just all get along, baby.
Yeah. At the same time, I do feel like Sam. You're right. Sam is absolutely the guy to say, I don't see color. Why are you so angry? And
yeah,
to be like, whoa, Sam, whoa, buddy. So at the same time, that is. I mean, look, that's one of the problems. Like, Sam Beckett himself is not the guy to jump in there. Like, like, what would be interesting?
But he thinks
he is.
He does.
Like, what if there was like and now we're talking like sliders, like time tunnel shit. Like, what if there was like a quantum leap team, and you do have like Mike Coulter, the guy from Luke Cage, is like leaping around with Sam, and they're like, Sam's like, why are they all so angry? He's like, you don't understand. Like, like, you really do need, because they also turn Lonnie into the bad guy. Like, you need a non-bad guy black man to be like, gotta explain it to Whitey, because that's like how fucking television works.
Brian, I think you just described the reboot, because Team Quantum Leap, like, we've got 3 leapers that kind of crisscross each other, and it's like, all right, why are we here? Cyber Al, let us know what's going on. Like, what are we here to solve? I think that'd be great. Like
3 separate time periods, all jumping around. You don't know how they connect. They'll finally, at the end of the season, they all come together. It's basically Dr. House.
Right. I did feel at times Susan, the character, annoyed the shit out of me because she was repeatedly telling everybody that Ray cannot be a great person in Watts. He can be a good person, but we need to go to Boston.
I don't want to see him lose his chance to be someone great.
He can be great right here.
No, he can't. He can do good here, but he can't be great.
Where racism doesn't exist.
So here's the interesting thing, because like let's tie this back into the fact that it was written in the 90s but by a black woman. Like, clearly, because of the way Sam at the end, Sam/Ray at the end says, we're going to stay here in Watts. And she's like, yeah, fucking A, we're going to stay here.
We have to stay together.
But like, we at the very beginning know that Susan is wrong because of, give back to your community. That's where we're at right now. Like, do we know in 1990 that Susan's wrong? Or we're like, yeah, he should go be great. Not, he's got to get out of Watts. He's got to go to Boston. And then at the end be like, oh no, like, because we're 30 years later, do we already understand that, do we get that point early? Do you know what I mean?
I don't know.
I think when you're looking at it in a modern lens, it's clear that Susan's wrong. But in 1990, looking at it in 1990, I don't know that you come to that conclusion right away. And like, but I feel like that's thank you for bringing up the fact that, who the writer was, because I think that's important, because it's, I feel like that's a very real conflict that a lot of people struggled with. And it's like, do you stay and give back to your community and do something very good, or do you
or get out of here?
If you want to be like a world-renowned surgeon and you have the talent to do that, but that requires you to leave your community, I feel like that's a very real struggle. I mean, obviously I'm coming from my naive perspective, but it seems very real.
But totally. I think, just as three white guys in 2021 looking at it, trying to be think of all the things that we've learned and how we've learned to look at stories like this and time periods like this, and we look at this. I think it comes down to it. This is a TV show of a certain time, right?
Sure,
this is an early 90s television show dealing with race from that fucking time period. Very boomer, written by a black woman, but writing for, this specific show.
Yes.
This audience even. Yeah. A bunch of boomers, with Sam Beckett, the character, and the main character has to be Sam Beckett. I think there is definitely a story here. It comes a problem when the star of your show is a white guy. It just makes you think about it all that much. It makes you think about these icky things, at least in 2021.
Icky things, title of the episode.
I was very, I came into the episode with low expectations, expecting it to be very cringy and very icky, as you said. And it was not nearly as bad as it could have been. There's definitely moments where I was very cringy, but then thinking about it afterwards, I think that was also kind of the point, because Sam, as we were talking about, that's how Sam thinks. And then you had the other side of that where, he was kind of being told no, you just don't get it. We're tired of this.
There's the CCH Pounder line where she's we're not talking about humans, we're talking about race. And I'm that's fuck. To say something like that on network television in 1990, that's pretty powerful shit.
Yeah.
That's so. Yeah, I think this episode is a pretty good one. They're both peak Quantum Leap, but for different reasons.
For very different reasons. And no time like the present then to start talking about the Great Spontini. It takes
Spontini.
Spontini. Sorry. What did I say? Santini. That's an actual magician.
The Great Santini is Robert Duvall beating up, I don't remember.
Either way, Spontini, May 9th, 1974. On this day, the U.S. House of Representatives Judiciary Committee begins formal hearings on the Nixon impeachment, something that was covered in Season 1 of Quantum Leap. The Locomotion was a top 5 hit by Grand Funk, and Dial M for Murder was killing it at the box office.
Oh, well played.
Sam does not get shirtless, unfortunately. He portrays a bumbling magician who actually isn't all that bumbling. It's just that Sam sucks. Who wants him and his daughter to buy a magician shop after winning a prize on a Bixby show.
The thing that immediately stood out to me is, at the end of every episode, they end it with the next leap. So you have this, that very emotional climax of the previous episode, and Sam as Ray is holding his holding this dead brother, and then it cuts to him jumping into a magician,
right.
And then he's like, "Oh boy!" And then it's we just kind of ruined the emotional climax of the previous episode.
But nobody enjoys a good whipsaw, movement like Quantum Leap Season 3. Oh, my brother, I saved his life, and now I'm a priest. Oh boy.
Well, I think that's what the Swiss cheese memory is good for, is that Sam doesn't remember what just happened.
Does he not?
Right?
Yeah, I guess he never really makes
references. Because otherwise, wouldn't he leap into this sword box just sobbing?
Yeah, right.
Wouldn't all of a sudden...
We also don't. I guess. I mean, there is no waiting room for him, right? In a leap, it's just immediately he's in some other thing, and he's in a box of swords, and he's just like, "Oh boy." And I guess I would say something similar, but as soon as I heard, a young girl saying the box of doom, I'd be like, "Oh, okay, I'm in a magician situation."
Got it.
And then you hear Sam go, "I've been in a lot of tight spots, but this is the tightest." And
really? Really? You've been shot at in Vietnam and almost blown up.
Well, I was just gonna say,
I realized I realize you're not watching these episodes back to back, Sam, but like 20 minutes ago, you were in this hostage situation.
Right.
It was wild, bro.
Not 20 minutes ago. Like, you literally were just there.
That guy's head just got blown off in front of you, and now you're in a box full of fake swords. Okay. All right.
10 minutes ago, you were wearing the back of some guy's skull, and now you're just chilling. So I wouldn't be worried about it too much.
But this is
like magic isn't real; it's illusions.
It's a peak Quantum Leap episode because the stakes are very, very low-ish, especially considering Sam has an ex who's not really an ex, but they have a daughter, and she comes back with a newly minted fiance who's also a lawyer, and her representation for divorce court. And
Evan, how can
shenanigans ensue.
How can you say the stakes are low? This girl, she's going to run away, and she's going to be stealing.
Right.
Living on the street.
That's what Al says. Sam, she's gonna run away to live on the streets and steal. I'm like, what? Like she's not even hooking? What are we worried about here?
Yeah,
I think that's the implication. They just couldn't say that on NBC.
There were some very long and boring parts of this episode that frustrated me. For instance, the cold open, which was literally 5 minutes of Sam ruining a magic trick. And then I noticed when he botched one of the moves or something, and then they cut to a room full of black people kind of being like, bah! And I was like, what the fuck? And then when he finally pulls off the saw trick, there's like a clip of a guy doing like the double-handed fist pump in the air, and I'm like, what the hell? And then it turns out they're in like Oakland or Stockton or something like that, and I was like, oh, okay, that makes some sense. But the Magic Nightly background here...
I'm in Watts. I was just there.
The Blue Mamba has nightly magic shows? Okay. But yeah, also...
Was anybody else worried that he was going to mess up the magic trick and like hurt the girl?
No, I was worried he's going to end up in the Blue Oyster.
But thank God we had his daughter there explaining the entire plot of the show, the episode, to us in the hallway, because Sam's dumb and he doesn't know what's going on. And there was a weird line that she said, well, first of all, she said, thank God we're in Oakland, and also said, as opposed to being in Vegas, but also said something about him getting that weird flu. And I'm like, huh?
That stands out. Like, it is weird watching television right now because you pick up on stuff like that, where at the time, no one would think about it. But like now you're like, ooh. And it's like in every show you watch, too.
The weird flu.
Well, how about the idea that, like, them having to explain away Sam? They very rarely worry about having to explain away the fact that Sam doesn't know what the fuck's going on. They're like, but for them to be like, you have weird flu, and then like on the Watts episode, they're like, oh no, Sam, you're interacting with Ray, and I'm like, this isn't barely part of that episode. Like, and why bring up the weird flu just to be? Never bring it up.
I don't
again.
know. I mean, like the person who wrote this episode, I'm like, why did they say that? Like, where did that come from? There has to be something that was going on at the time, or I don't know what.
What weird flu in 1974? Who the fuck knows?
Or even in 1990? I don't know.
Wait, hold on. When
AIDS, I think, was the weird flu.
Oh, the butt flu.
Edgy.
But yeah, so the first 10 minutes, though, if we extend this further. Elaine, the hot lady from next door who has the hots for Sam for I don't know what, the backstory here is like, thank God I got us booked together on this 4-week stint or whatever because I have the hots for you. And she's also from Falcon Crest, I found out. But Al shows up and he's like, yeah, Tina's been visiting her mother and I got needs. He just says that.
Once again, Al is basically a window peeper. Sam, I was just in the girls' locker room and they didn't know.
Right.
Like, all right, cool.
But so this lady is like actively trying to fuck Sam. He, of course, as always, is like, wait, what?
Sex?
What if he had gone through with it, though? Like, if this were a dirtier, grittier Quantum Leap, he'd basically be fucking this lady in front of Al, like, every time, basically.
Could you imagine?
Which seems like Al wants that to happen?
Let's call it True
really
Quantum Leap, and it's basically True Detective, but Quantum Leap.
Ooh.
And Sam's just like, he's been doing this for like 50 years at this point, just leaping around. Yeah. Every time he leaps, he's like, what fucking year is it? Where's a pack of smokes? He hates sleeping into anything past, let's say, 1998, because he can't smoke inside. And so he's like, he's just smoking, he's fucking everything that moves. He's like, yeah, I'm here to make her fall in love with me. Great, just great. I'll be fucking real, just charming. Just goddamn it, Al. And I mean, Al's long dead. Al's like that kitten from Hang In There, Baby. Definitely dead. So like, who's the new person? Who's the new person that only you can see in here?
I don't know.
Al, like maybe an English guy. Dr. Beckett, I think it's time for you to come home. Shut the fuck up. I'm just here to solve something. God damn it. So yeah, that's True Quantum Leap.
Right. So great pitch. I take it to the
Ziggy says, I've been doing this for 50 years. Ziggy's wrong.
But in this episode, Ziggy never says shit. Sam immediately interrupts and says, I'm obviously here to save this family because I'm Sam. And then they go through a whole bunch of boring scenes where Al beats the shit out of the hand link and breaks it, so Sam can't adequately defend himself in the judge's chambers or whatever you want to call it.
What's your kid's birthday? I don't know.
I found him to be shockingly inept. You would think that Sam, who has like 87 PhDs, would also have somehow a law degree. Was very bad at defending himself. But then one of my favorite lines is peak Al being peak Al feminism. Family court. Women have all the power.
Yeah. Someone just said, what if us men had rights? Men's rights.
Well, Sam dabbles in a bit of that later because he's like, there's no law that says a man can't be every good of a parent as a woman.
Who says that the woman has to raise the kid? Am I right, Casey? Because they're like,
exactly.
They're like, it's fine. I think, like, again, just like the problems in Black on White on Fire. This is just 90s shit that happens. This is stuff that
at the beginning when Al shows up, did you kind of expect for Al to be like, this one time I ran away from the orphanage and I joined a magician show for 5 months, and then that's how Sam was going to learn how to do these tricks?
No,
I'm sorry, not tricks, illusions.
Instead, I was very pleased to discover that instead Al had joined a pack of pickpockets, and he had learned how to pick locks, and they called him Al the Pick. Right. So anyway, this is just like boilerplate Quantum Leap. I like it. It's like I said earlier. Both these episodes, one is the Sam solves racism boilerplate. This one is low stakes bullshit. Ain't nothing better than back on a 12-year-old little girl. I don't know what it is about the entire show, but it just fucking works.
Speaking of this actress, the young lady, she's on what, Young and the Restless for like 20,000 years?
Yeah, she did like almost 400 episodes of Young and the Restless. I think it was like 383 or something.
I thought the ending would have been much funnier if Jamie actually gets killed by the table of death, and then while Sam simultaneously loses custody.
All right, in the gritty reboot of Quantum Leap, that happens, but then but it's also Groundhog Day, so then he has to he gets leaped back like 10 minutes.
2 minutes.
Yeah,
minutes.
To like retry.
Yeah, I just loved it when he does his Sam maneuver because Al tells him that like she's in danger, and he's just like, I have a feeling that my daughter's in danger at the club, the Blue Mamba. How did she get in? I don't know.
Casey, that's a legitimate thing that happens later on in the series, by the way.
Ooh.
So can we talk about the ending though? Where Sam's like, and what about Matt? And Sam's like, what about Maggie? Do we get together? And I was like, oh, sorry, Sam, not in the cards. And Sam says,
hold on 1 second.
Insane. Poor Elaine.
Like they win, basically the mom decides, oh, this lawyer boyfriend, he's kind of a jerk. I need to get back with, this guy, my husband. And then Al's like, you did it. They get, the family's back together. But
they have a beautiful friendship.
So they make it seem like he's getting ready to leap. And then Sam goes over and kisses her, and then like Al's like, oh, nope, you changed it. So like, what worked? Yeah. Like, did he get a bonus round?
Sam?
Oh, did Sam get a bonus round?
So that's the other thing.
Yeah.
When he's like, he's looking at the hand link, and Al's like, "It's changing, Sam." That makes me like, what does Al see on there? Like, what graph is he looking at?
It's
Like
reader approaching.
Right. Like, is it the time variance? Is it the TVA? Is he looking at like the branching timelines?
Nice evergreen reference there. I thought that the whole plot line, the reason that this lady left them is because he wanted to open a magic shop? I don't know, because like as soon as she shows back up, it's like she's clearly still in love with him, which Sam, oddly enough, was right about. And, you know, the minute they have time to themselves to start talking, like, they're making out.
Right.
And I didn't understand.
It wasn't the
like,
magic shop. It was the fact that he was he never, like, it was, to her, the magic shop was a pipe dream that he was always like, yeah, I just need, my next big gig. I'm going to get it. I'm going to have enough money. So it was just like in her view, he's like, he's never going to make anything of himself. So I got to go leave, finish school, and then make some money so I can provide for my family.
But for a mother, is that enough for her to simply just abandon her child? Like,
yeah.
Oh, you know what? I'm done. I'm out of here.
Like, you really believe
you and your magic?
Like you're a touring magician 30 weeks of the year. Like, bro sounds super successful. Like, he's booking
right, 30
gigs,
weeks a year?
30 weeks a year. Like,
I mean, granted, the Blue Mamba is not top of the list, but hey.
But they had to pay for him to get there. Like, unless he's a schmuck. Unless he's a total schmuck, and then like I don't know what to do about it. But the man is also working on his craft. He's not like, honey, look at me, like, oh my cards, like
I blew off my hand.
He only like when Jamie's like, all right, so here's this lockpick shit. Like, I booked you. I gave you an extra like 20 seconds on it. You'll be fine. Like, she expects him to be able to do that. So you have to assume that guy can do that.
Right, and we are also at this point now introduced to one of Al's many talents. He's apparently a master picker.
Oh yeah,
he has the nickname Sam the Pick.
He worked for that Dickensian pickpocket gang for a while.
Carnival.
That's right. That's right.
They want you to he was a carny.
They want you to believe that he's a lock pick. He can pick locks, but really, it's just he goes picks junk out of people's garages.
Right.
Ooh, he's a picker.
So, so that's that episode. It's pretty good. Yeah. I liked it.
Yeah,
I liked them both. Yeah.
Enjoyable. I think one far more heavy than the other, but who cares? See you next Leap. What are we doing next week anyway?
Oh, I thought did we? Is that it? Are we finished? Because
no. Sorry.
The next episode is the Kerouac episode. Like,
right, he jumps into a biker and then bails on his bike and says, "Oh boy!"
Like, not, oh fuck my leg. Like, oh boy.
I think if I wrecked my motorcycle immediately after leaping, I'd probably say something.
I'd say, "Oh fuck my leg."
Fuck!
It's broken. Help me!
Fuck! Ow! Fuck!
I don't think you could say that on NBC primetime.
But you should
bleep it. Just a moment of Sam like being actually a human being, like, oh shit, fuck.
That's in the Netflix
leg.
version.
Yeah, we got to get on this gritty reboot, guys. Team Quantum Leap meets True Detective.
It'd be just like the Knight Rider reboot, where there's a team of Knight Riders.
Oh, let's never talk about that.
Time is a flat circle.
Sure is, and that's why we will see you next Leap.
See you next Leap.
Leap.